Hello everyone, in this lab I'm going to show you how to make this same sword, but I'm going to do it using a box modeling technique. For this technique, it's going to be slightly different, and I'm going to start by, I've got all these named I believe. Okay, so these are all named. I'm going to start by, I'm going to keep this in the same file. Just for simplicity, I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to highlight all these, select all the objects, layer, create layer from selected, and I'm going to rename this layer attribute editor sword layer, and save. And I'm just going to go ahead and hide that one so I can't see it. So I still have it in my scene, I'm just hiding it. Okay, that's a little foreshadow into a future lab as well, so good little technique to know how to do. So I'm just gonna hide it for now. So back to my scene. I have the grid turned off. I could turn it back on, but I don't really see a reason for it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get into a box model of this sword. Now the last time I started at the blade and worked my way down. This time I think I'm going to start at the handle, the bottom sphere, and work my way up. So I feel like that might be the easiest way to get these two parts done. Then I'll get into how I'm going to model this section and this section. I'm going to try to make this as easy and simple as possible. And I'm going to dive right into it. I've covered a lot of the information in the previous video. This way might be a little bit faster. In the long run, the attribute editor style will be a very effective way, but for this simple of a model, this isn't an easy way to kind of go about it. So when I'm box modeling this, and I'm not going to do the ring, I'm going to substitute that for a ring, or for a sphere, excuse me. And I'm going to create a sphere, and I'm going to call this BM for box model sword mesh. So now I've got them. So now I can tell the difference between which one is in my outliner. Again, the outliner, windows, and outliner. So going right into it, polysphere. I'm going to move a little bit faster on this one. Switch that to 8 and 8 since we already covered it. And I'm going to bring this down, and you'll see that I'm already combining my methods, right? And just like the last one, I'm going to sort of line this up so that this top part, the top edge loop here, before it gets to what's called the cap, lines up here. And I'm not going to follow this. It doesn't need to be perfect. And now the easiest way to grab the faces that I need is holding right click and going to face, and it's going to be easiest to grab them from my top view. Now if you remember, if you wanted to select it like that, now I'm going to tap F on my keyboard just to show you. I zoomed in very quickly. It selects them all there. Now another super fast way to do this, instead of clicking each one individually, I've covered this with you before, is to just click and drag and highlight all those. That does the same thing. So if I select off and now I re-highlight, you'll see I selected everything on the cap by doing a quick click and drag. And with that being said, those are going to be the start of my handle. So I'm going to box model this using the Extrude Tool, or if I use my modeling toolkit over here, I guess I'll try to get used to it. It might be a faster way to work. Tap W for move, because here, let me show you real quick. If I have these selected and I go to extrude, you'll notice it gets wonky in direction, and I don't want it to. I mean, it's doing kind of what I want it to do, but I'm just old-fashioned maybe. I'm gonna undo that. Back to the beginning, right? I'm gonna make sure I've got all these faces selected. And you can always tell if you've got additional extrudes here in your inputs. So if I were to extrude, you'll see I've got a new extrude here, and then I also have the creation of the polysphere here. So that's a good way to tell how many extrudes you have on an object. You'll see I've got extrude face 1 and polysphere 2. This is when I originally created the model, and it even comes up with your little subdivision axes, so it's a quick little shortcut. And this is your extrude, but I'm going to undo it just so you can see, because the most common issue I find in beginner modelers is they extrude too many times accidentally. So here I'm going to extrude once. I'll go to my modeling toolkit. I'll try that, hit extrude, and I'm going to tap W for my move tool, so it's just going straight up and down, and I'm going to go ahead and click and drag that up. And now that I've got that there, I'm going to tap R, grabbing my yellow square handle here, I'm going to extrude or scale it out. I'm now going to extrude again, clicking it one time. I'm going to tap my W tool for move and drag this up to another somewhat sort of appropriate spot and scale it using my yellow tool here. If you tap G on the keyboard, it does last tool used. And now I'm going to go ahead and scale this in. And when it refers to tool, it doesn't really refer to move or scale. It refers to, like, if the last thing you did was combine, or the last thing you did was merge, or whatever. Anyway, in this case, it's just referring to the extrude. So let me just make sure I already scaled that in a little bit, and I'm going to do this probably one more time. Right up to here. Now you won't have the perfectly subdivided spacing, but that's okay. And now I've got the start of this handle here. Okay, you can always add more subdivisions if you wanted to bring this down. Oh, sorry. Maybe you wanted an extra one here to get a little bit closer, but you don't need that much topology. But tapping G, reuse last tool used, and now I've got the start of my handle. I've got the geometry is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be perfectly subdivided in terms of distance from one another, but now I've got this entire thing as one object, as you see here. Okay, so that's pretty cool little benefit. If I were to box model this thing all the way through, which I don't find to be really crazy effective, since for this one in particular, because of the shape of this, I could now create a cube, drag that down, and I'm just scaling and moving into place. And this time I'm really just going to go to, I'm going to just go to this edge here and scale this inward. Oh, something like that, I guess. That should be fine. And you'll notice that this is still cylindrical, the handle, because I grabbed it from the circular part of the actually the cap of my sphere and extruded out. And now from here, I'm going to switch to my face mode. Oh, and using that multi-cut tool is typically more of a sign of, as I showed in the last video, this is something you typically add in a box modeling fashion, but And this is how you would have done it. What was it, depth? Yep. Here. And you can combine the methods however you'd like. But if you're going to do strictly box modeling, I would grab both of these and I would add that in before. You could always add it later, but add it in. I would have liked to have added it before I went into the multi-cut tool before, but either way. So here I am. I've got just these ends selected, just this face, this face, this face, and this face. And I'm holding shift and selecting those as I go along. And now again, I'm going to use the Extrude tool. Here's another place, same exact tool that's in your modeling toolkit. Extrude, you'll see it's the same exact icon right here. And this time I'm going to tap R, excuse me, and now I'm going to use my red handle on the far right side and drag these out. And I'm going to just kind of eyeball where I need it. I'm not going to go every single segment. Like if I followed every single one of these lines in here, I would have a lot of geometry that I really don't need that much of. You know, you could do one here, and I'm just following these brown dark lines. One here, 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 right? It would get complicated and confusing. So I'm going to just kind of split the difference and go right about here. So I guess the third one in. And now I'm going to, with those same faces selected, I'm going to extrude again, tap my R button for scale, and now I'm going to scale this out. Let's just 1, 2, 3. We'll do that one. And I'm going to tap G for last tool used and R to scale again, and that's just extruding again. 1, 2, 3, and then G and R, and 1, 2, 3. Boom. So now that I've got this here, same thing that I did before, like the edges, I can select. So I can't double click these because it's going to select the entire thing. I would have to select one and the other. And I find it to be just a little annoying, which is why I like to work in my front viewport. So I'm going to do it just with the vertices. With my object selected, I'm going to hold right click, go to vertex, and I'm going to select it on both sides. So this way it's symmetrical, but I'm going to follow my right side of my reference. And we'll get into symmetry a little bit later, but it's just a little confusing, and sometimes this way is just a little bit easier to understand. And there we have it. So now we've done the same exact thing, just a totally different method. And one last thing is I should have already had a center subdivision piece here, which I forgot, because I'm going to hold Control with my multi-cut tool selected. You can also access your multi-cut tool here. Hold Control and Shift. I want it to be right at 50% because I want to match this geometry I have here. I want this line here and this line here just to sort of match it, and you'll see why in the upcoming labs. And now if I wanted to create my blade, I can do it this way. So this is a really cool little trick. If I select one, holding shift, holding shift, holding shift. This one I can't do any cool double clicks because it's just going to select the entire edge loop. So this one I'm stuck with holding shift and clicking all 4 of those faces. Now, if you remember something like the sphere that I created that had 20 subdivisions and 20 on the axis and 20 subdivisions or whatever, you remember it had like 760 triangles and blah 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 because I showed you the poly count on it. Imagine having to do something like that with a lot of polys to click on. It would take forever. So it's a little bit easier. It's easier to add geometry later than it is to work with early on. So anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to go back to my Extrude tool. I'm going to tap R on my keyboard. This is one of my favorites because it's so useful, is scaling when you're extruding. When you scale, when you don't have to move extrusions out. You can actually scale them inward. And now what I'm going to do is try to figure out where I want it to, how thick this blade is going to be. Now it's hard to see without my reference images, right? So this is a time where it would probably be pretty useful, but I'm going to ballpark it. I'm just going to say it's going to be right there, and I'm also going to thin it out, right? I'd say that's pretty fair. Okay, so we're going to go right to there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, remember, like I say, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is art, so just a new medium, right? So now I'm going to extrude again. I'm going to use W for my move tool, and I'm going to pull upwards. Wow, I did a pretty good eyeball on that. And now, I mean, I could drag this all the way to the top. Ooh. Don't even know what I did there. I could drag this all the way to the top without adding additional geometry, which is probably the way to go with this one. And even the last one, I want you to get into the habit of that. And I'm going to drag that all the way up. And now I've got this here. And I'm going to hold right click and go to vertex, click on my center vertex, and make that point. And now I've got literally a little bit, maybe faster, I'm not sure. But either way is totally fine. And now the last thing I need to do is select my edges that wrap around. Tap F if your camera starts getting a little wonky to focus right back in on the object. And I'm going to drag those in. And now I've got my box modeled sword in just a couple pieces, right? So I've got 1 and 2. And this will be BM. The last one I called sword mesh. This is going to be sword blade, sword hilt, blade hilt mesh, because it's the blade and the hilt. And this is going to be handle sphere mesh. So with the box modeling technique, now you'll see I've got a lot more things that I did to it, so it really can start to create a lot of history inside of just one simple object, but no big deal. We'll get into more details on that later, but now I've got a very basic blocked out model of my sword in just 2 pieces using the box modeling technique. But results are still the same. You can use a combination of both and get the same results. You just have to find the technique or the combination of techniques that you're most comfortable with when modeling. I hope this was a helpful technique for you to learn. If you have any questions, shoot me a message on Canvas inbox. I don't really have much else to cover on this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight these while I'm at it. And layer, create layer from selected. Oh, wait. Layer, create layer from selected. I think I might have accidentally selected the image plane as well. And this one's going to be BM sword layer for box model sword layer. And you'll see, let's do select the objects. I've got both my swords right here, practically identical. And one, either way is fine. Both are perfectly fine ways to do it. But I wanted to show you both ways. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, shoot me a message on Canvas inbox. But other than that, I hope you all enjoyed the little box modeling technique. And you all have a wonderful day and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you so much.